And there it is. There we are. We are live, rocking and rolling with very, very exceptional coach, teacher, top 50. Been doing it a long time. Brian Manzella, second visit to the Golf 360. So thank you for coming on. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
I think three.
Yeah, you're right. I'm
must have
correct.
must have been a forgettable episode.
Before we get into the main topic, which is the Golf Digest Golf Magazine Top 100, you've been doing some traveling and some teaching and coaching. I know in your career you've been, is it 39 countries around the world?
I think I've talked at 19, so
Okay.
I've gone crossed over. I've probably been to 30. I like traveling. It breaks up the day to day, and you know, if your goal is to be, and this kind of dovetails into what this, you know, our little episode is today. If you want to be the best teacher in the world, and it's always been my goal. I mean, I'm running out of time here, but you know, hopefully the man upstairs will give me some more years here. You're pretty much going to have to travel around the world. You're not going to be able to do it from your bat cave, as much as I'd like to be able to do it from this bat cave right here. It's just a little more interesting to travel, and it's very interesting when you travel how different the golf pros and the golf business is. I think the golf pros are more different from country to country than most people would think, as like little groups of people. And the business is very similar, right? It's still an old school business, but that's changing. But it's a lot of fun. And, you know, especially when I get to talk, you know, to groups like I went to Korea a few months ago, and then me and Michael Jacobs are going back end of February. He's never been, but it's one of those things where you accumulate all this information. You'd like to make some money with it, some fame, you know, get on lists. But at the end of the day, you know, and help golfers play better. But at the end of the day, you don't want to die with this information. You want to share it to other people. And you know, you don't want people like doing like, trying to figure out what you thought about something like they do. You know, my whole life was like people figuring out what Homer Kelly, who wrote The Golfing Machine, thought about something, or what Ben Hogan, right, who said if he really wrote an instruction book, it would be this thick, actually thought about something. Well, you know, I got a big mouth. I'll tell you what I think while I'm on this planet, so you don't have to make it up later on. You'll probably get it wrong.
You know what I find interesting is whenever somebody wins, whether it's Ludwig or Rory, Rahm, but fill in the blank, that all the different disciplines of coaching, that all the different theories will start posting pictures and videos of their swing and say, look, see how he does this in our system. Isn't this great?
They can't all be right. And you can always tell kind of what's popular in teaching, at least on the internet, because Ardberg's swing is not. It's very similar to what, I mean, matter of fact, I had another top 50 teacher. I try to keep people's names out of things. Tell me that Ardberg's swing reminded him of Pei Chen, Michael Jacobs's up and coming student that plays for St. John, because there's a lot of stuff. But if you're teaching hold the club to the top and doing all this stuff and bending right side bending, which is very popular, Ardberg's not doing any of that. You're not going, ooh, Ardberg won, because you're pulling for your little deal. Yeah. And hey, it's human nature. You know, I'm going to go to a football game on Sunday and jump up and down for the Saints. So,
all right. Well, let's get into the main topic, because you and I had a very good discussion on this a couple of weeks ago, before you went flying around the globe, and I got to sit here in South Carolina. Not too cold, but cold enough that couldn't do a whole lot. But nonetheless, we had a very good discussion, and you have been in and around the top 50 or top 100 list, whichever one there is, for a very long, basically since the beginning. You have one. You're one who is.
So I've been following it since the beginning, but yes. I have not. I guess I'm about 12 years. Well, if you add the end of wherever this runs to, right, wherever these lists run to, it'll be 12 or 13 on Golf Magazine Top 100, and 10 or 11 on Digest Top 50. So I was on the other list like maybe once or twice before I got on the, but I've been following it since day one because like I tell people, Pete, we don't have tournaments. We don't have teach-offs as much as I'd like to have them. So this is it. You've got, you can get asked to talk at big things, which are less and less important. Once upon a time, you know, the PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit was the pinnacle. Now it's something, but it's not the pinnacle because there's an internet and you can do shows like this and talk to people about the swing by just traveling around the world like we were talking about earlier. But everybody says they don't really care about the list until they get on them, and then you see they just, I'm so humbled and I'm, you know, whatever. But the point is, everybody cares because we don't have anything else. And these two lists are as good as we've got. I would like to see, to be very honest, a third list that everybody that was somebody like a teacher like me would pay, that cared, would pay somewhere between $200, $300, $400 a year, and they would do the lists around the world and local, and you would with golfers and without, you know, with teachers, and just because it's market research. At the end of the day, all the criticism about the lists, they're free market research that would cost you a lot of money to do. Maybe not a lot of money collectively, but individually, it would cost you a lot of money to do. So you just need to know, and that's what I wanted to talk about, like how they're done, how they're voted on, how do people move up and down, how the lists have changed, you know, kind of some of the things they've done over the years. And the first thing is that the first list was the magazine list. So Lauren Anderson, who now runs Proponent Group, is a great guy. Cheryl's his wife. They had great little daughter. He created the list. I don't know if George Pepper had anything to do with it. Me and George Pepper never saw eye to eye. I'd love to meet with that guy again and bury that hatch. I don't think he knows who I am, you know, but I mean, I ran into him. He gave me a couple of basically backhand slaps at the PGA show in my youth. And I'd like to walk up there with the big 13 on my jersey and say, hey, hey, George. But anyway, so Lauren, I haven't talked to him about how he did it, but more or less, it probably didn't spend the time or have the resources that they do now, right? So that list, that original list was probably, like I tell people, okay, the only way you're going to find out who the best 100 teachers or best 50 teachers or who's 1, 2, 3, 4 is you're going to have to go upstairs and talk to somebody a lot more knowledgeable about how this whole world works than us two. And if you had like a couple of questions at the pearly gates, that probably wouldn't be one of them. But if it was, you have the real list, like who really is the best teachers in order, according to the man upstairs. And then you have the lists that we're going to talk about. And that first list was probably further from correct than any list that's been done since. And you can't really fault the guy. Who was a writer. He's not a teacher. He didn't know everybody. Those national summits had just really kind of started, you know. Like the PGA show was a PGA show. Now, if you go this year, like we were talking about you going this year, the whole front of the building, I mean, it's 2 million square feet, right? But the whole front of the building, like sort of revolving around the TrackMan booth, which is in a perfect spot. Plus it's a big deal in the industry. TrackMan, got my number 4 over there. It's almost like a teacher's convention, right? And you've got the seminars. Everybody's got a seminar. Me and Mike are doing one at the Gears booth on Wednesday. We talked about that, but an open forum, right? So it's almost become now you can see a whole lot of people in one place. So that first list was probably the most flawed, and then it got better over the years. And I'll just stay on the magazine list. At some point, when Pepper and the magazine maybe got sold or changed hands or whatever, and Lauren, went to do something else, it fell on sort of like, I don't want to say disrepair, but it was like the magazine was like, well, we don't have anybody to do it. And that's when they hired David D'Annunzio. And either right before they hired D'Annunzio, who's now the editor and a good friend. Lucky for me, I'm friends with all these guys. Even though they're bitter rivals, you know, the two magazines. But Mike Adams, TJ Tomasi, who just passed, rest his soul, nice man. I think Jim Suddy, Ed Ibarguen, those guys sort of like rescued the list for Dave and said, hey, look, we'll be this committee and we'll help you with this. We have this current list and we'll try to do. And they sort of rescued it. And then over the years, that's the way that list is come up with. In other words, you have a committee, different people on the committee over the years have been in and out. They vote on the list. The magazine obviously has the hammer, right? And that's the list. Okay, so that's A. So at some point, not that far into that list being in existence, Golf Digest did a list. Matt Rudy has run the list the whole time. And it's been a vote. So over the years, they've got more and more people voting. This time they have 3,000 people voting. And there's different ways they've done it, but we'll get into how they do it now, you know, how the actual, you know, when you go to your little voting window, what are you doing? And they've added more and more people because they asked the people on the list, well, like, who should be, you know, is there anybody that you know that doesn't get a ballot, you think ought to get a ballot? And so, you know, now that's 3,000 people. That's pretty good. I think a lot of these presidential surveys you see on TV, they don't have 3,000 people. So it's pretty good. And it's a vote. It's a vote. And then the magazine has, you know, those guys, you know, have a vote, you know, because they it's their list. So, you know, at the end of the day, if you don't know that's how it's being done, it's very different. To impress a small group of knowledgeable golf pros, titans of the industry, right? Because you're not going to, if you're the editor of Golf Magazine like David D'Annunzio, you're not going to put a committee together to do the top 100. That's a bunch of schlups. So you got big time guys on the committee. Impressing that group of people is very different than impressing 3,000 people who aren't going to just decide whether Pete is one of the top 50 or not, but they're going to, at the end of the day, rank them. So let's get to that. So on the digest list, okay, I'm Joe Teacher. I just moved here from Korea, you know, like one of my buddies where I'm going back. And I decided, damn it, I'm teaching in America. So I come over here and I get on the ballot list and I get sent the ballot and there it is. It opens up on my computer and it's about 160 or so names with a little box you can click. Yep. And 3 or 4 little write-in things. I think Pete Popovich, click, right? Mm-hmm. All right. You can vote for up to 50. And I think there are way more than half of the people who vote who don't realize they don't have to vote. They don't have to click on 50. It's just up to 50. But you have, if you want to vote for it, then the next thing is you vote for your top 10 of the people you clicked on. So if you want to vote for 10, you're going to have to click on 10 or write in, you know, a certain amount. And then you rank them. Brian Manzella 1, Michael Jacobs 2, you know, Sean Webb 3, you know, Rick Silva 4, you know, whatever your deal is, right? Cameron McCormick 5. So that's how it's done. And then obviously you get a whole lot more value for a top 10 vote or a number 1 vote than you do for a click. And because I'm not, you know, Mr., you know, hold my cards close to me, because I don't really think that's how you want to win a ball game or a contest. I never in the last 4 or 5 have ever clicked on 50. because it's one of those things when I get to a certain number, okay, I'm clicking on the people, then it's like, like when you're inviting people to your wedding. I'll never forget when me and Lisa got married 20 years ago. Like I got to the point where, okay, the boys that play at Norman Playground, I played in a football, league for mostly African American for about 30 years of my life until I just got old and broken down. And some of those people are the dearest friends I have in the whole world. And got choked up just thinking about them. Anyway, you can't invite one. You see, if I click on Ronald Winfrey, then Irv Noyle's got to go. Leo Bailey's got all these. And we had so many people. So I couldn't have some of those guys come because I would have had to have 6 or 7 of them come. So I'm voting on this list and I'm, past the first couple of rows here of my people that, I think, I need to vote for because they deserve it. And then I get to, oh, well, shoot, if I vote for him, I got to vote for all of these people that I consider to be somewhat on. So I tend to vote for way less than 50. And then I really think about my top 10. And that's how they do it. So I don't think a whole lot of people know the basics, but that's it. The committee is impressing that group of people, impressing 3,000 people. Obviously, they're pretty damn different. Now you got better odds on the 100 because there's 100 people. Okay, now one extra thing before I'm sure you got a million questions, but let me get to this while I'm on my notes. So let's start with Golf Magazine. Not only is there a top 100, but let's start from the top of the non-top 100 list. There's a Hall of Fame. I inducted my mentor, Ben Doyle, 2 years ago at the top 100 that I just got back from in December. So one year ago, 22.
Yeah, you did the speech. I remember seeing that.
So Ben obviously isn't taking anybody's spot right now because he passed. Okay. But Butch Harmon is in the Hall of Fame. So he's not taking anybody's. There's a spot open because Butch Harmon and Jim McLean and David Ledbetter, as you can imagine, if you have a Hall of Fame, those guys, right. Bob Toski, they're in the Hall of Fame. So then there's another piece that if you've been on the list for 20 straight years, you're sort of like emeritus. You're like, lifetime, even if you maybe don't get to that next Hall of Fame level. So that's probably current 40 people, 35 people, something like that. So it's the top 100, not including those 35 or 40 people. All right. So this year, and it seems to be one of the few things I've read around the internet that people were like, oh, what is it? They busted out 15 current and 5 non-current, all living legends of teaching like Butch and Jim McLean and Chuck Cook and Hank Haney. And now they're on their own, except Mike Hebron. They're on their own little Legends of Golf, Pia and Lynn, I think, right?
Yep.
They're on the legend list, and that opened up 15 spots, right? Because we were talking yesterday, about what time to get together. How else are you gonna listen? The man upstairs decides when you're gonna leave this planet, right? He's running his rap game, and my mom is still on this planet, and she's 93. I'm gonna hope to go see her on Monday. That place is full of 90-year-old people, man. That retirement place. So these people that are on this list, Butch Harmon was going to be in an assisted living place and still getting voted number 1.
Yeah, you got to make room for the people who are coming up.
So there you go.
That's a good idea that they had.
So there's the list. That's we obviously we got a million things to talk about, like how does somebody get on the list, but that's the bones of it. So I think the first thing you got to know, because there's always been, I was very lucky to start teaching at the place I taught, where there was somewhere between 15 and 20 other people who wanted you to die not really die, but in the business, die enough where you go sell, weed eaters, Home Depot. And I realized that if those people were voting, not that there was any list back then, 41 years ago, they weren't voting for me. They'd vote for me off the island. I'd be the first guy voted off the island, the young guy with the video camera. But then what the public thought, right? So I knew, and then what you have to be able to self-evaluate. You're never going to get good at anything. You have to know, no matter how many times they patted Michael Jordan on the back, he probably went, yeah, but I got to work on my jumper. Mm-hmm. Right. So I knew very early on, okay, you want to be the best? Great. But there's the best, the actual best, the man upstairs and and then the acknowledged best. I don't really know really know is I think the best term, Butch. Okay. I know his brother better, Dick, and I knew Dick, and I know
Billy.
Yeah, Billy. I know the best. Thank you. And Dick passed, and he was a great man. Let me tell you, I had a great lunch with him one time. But he had some stories, man. So anyway, I don't know Butch that good. I've run him to the airports when I was out there with David and stuff, 10 years ago. And but the odds are he's probably not the best golf teacher, across the board golf teacher on the planet. I'm not saying that disparagingly. It's just there's 50,000 people doing this business, and he can't. Even Michael Jordan's not the best basketball player in the world anymore. So, but he's never going to finish on any vote less than number one. So obviously there are two separate things, and people need to kind of wrap their heads around that. You want to move up the list, realize that that's different than the actual, right? This is the acknowledgement of either this committee or the 3,000 people vote.
What is the 3,000 people? Because they sent me a voting packet, and I guess thankfully enough that the podcast has grown big enough. I had enough top coaches on,
and you're a golf teacher,
and I'm a golf coach. Yeah, so I don't know what criteria. Maybe it was both that they said, hey, he knows enough about what he's
way more than enough.
And he has,
not because I'm just here on your show, but
right. But we talked about that. I know enough about the swing. I mean, I've done it for, not to say that if you do something for 3 or 4 decades that I mean, my dad used to always say you could do it wrong for 4 decades and you're 100%. Still wrong. And then, I have a lot of you on and we talk detail. I get you an hour and a half, 2 hours. You really get to dig into depth, and that's why I did long form. But I'm curious to the committee, because you said, you've really got to impress them. How many are on that? And then how do you know who the selection criteria is or what you have to be to get on there? Not that I'm pining to be on there. I'm just curious who would be on there making these finer details.
I've told enough people this that I don't think Dave D'Annunzio would get mad at me for saying it. I think one day he wanted to, just to show you, like, people think that these things are slopped together. The amount of time that D'Annunzio, when he was doing it, and Rudy, that still does it, spend on this thing is giant. It's hundreds of hours.
It's like their magazine's swimsuit issue. The top 100 list comes out.
Exactly. So once upon a time, I think he just wanted to check the work of the committee. So I got a bunch of resumes in a giant box and go ahead, and he didn't tell me what to do. He just said, rank them, come up with some little, A list, B list, whatever, So what I did was I had 650 resumes, still have them. And
not surprised.
I'm a pack rat. So I had 9 people that I think these 9 people should be on the list already. 9 people.
On the committee?
No. This was
on the list. Okay.
So they had the list, right? So I didn't get. Then I had 650 resumes of people that were nominated themselves, however it worked then, because you can nominate yourself now, which is good because sometimes you're a man on an island. Of the 9 people that I said these people should be on the list, 8 of those people are currently on the top 100 list. And I'll tell you the person who's not, Kevin Shields, who's a dear friend of mine and somebody I've helped with his golf game for about 15 years and is a great player. His son's going to be Pittsburgh. His son's going to be a first-round pick in the Major League draft next year and be the youngest person drafted in the first round. Pitcher, left-hand pitcher.
I played with Kevin on the 2001 the DP tour.
There you go. And he's been around. So some kind of way, he's not. He's the guy that slips through the cracks of my little list that I got over here of how people might know who you are to vote for you, right? He's at a nice club, a Nicklaus course. He plays in a lot of tournaments, but for whatever reason, he doesn't post. He posts a decent amount on social about stuff, but not necessarily about the swing. And maybe if I would have kept my forum going a little longer, because he was one of the guys, But the other 8 guys have been on that list. So I did okay. Now, it's not that hard, right, to figure it out, really, to be honest with you. And then I had about, I think it was 39 people that were like one notch lower. And a lot of those people are on the top 100 now. So I think he was just doing that to go like, Manzella's kind of plugged in all of this. How is the committee doing? Well, obviously the committee must do pretty good because I came up with 9 people and a few years ago, 8 of those people were already on the list. So I know names that have been on the list over the years. And I said for the original committee, I think that's the right 4. I don't think saying their names or whatever. I don't know who exactly.
We don't have to put them out.
Yeah. But it's somewhere between 4 and 6 people or something like that. And but I know a guy who's a friend of mine that was on last time, not this current one, and not on this time, right? Actually on the committee. And so I think, they individually look at everything, and then they probably get together on a Zoom or maybe even in person, and they go, so Pete, what about Kevin Shields? Well, let's see, Kevin Shields. Yeah, I got him over here. Let's see, yeah, Pittsburgh, right? Yeah, I played in the tournament with him in 2001. Yeah, who has he helped? Right. So they start looking at like, have you talked at seminars? Who do you teach? Right? Like, okay, yeah, he's got a bunch of good local players, a bunch of college players. He's a good player. Everybody that I've asked thinks he's very knowledgeable. Okay, let's put him over here. Now, who you got? Who you got over here? We got Bobby Cressman from New Orleans. Okay, he'd been teaching a long time. Blah blah blah. Good player. Was a Henry Griffiths guy early on. Studied under Noel Manzella. He's got some good. Mm-hmm. He's still teaching. Okay, we got one spot. Man, Cressman's a good guy. Kevin, I'm sure that's how it's done, right? I mean, like at some point you get to some level that
you got to make a call.
You got to make a call in the room. Probably it does it, and that's how I got on. We'll talk about that later. At some point, 2 of the guys in the room who had more swing or bigger miles or both basically said, no, he's on. But some people didn't want me. Right. I mean, you got to realize that you're dealing with people, and the difference is in a committee. I'll never forget. I brought up. I went to a PGA thing. One of the twice a year things. The sections get together when I was in Kentucky, and cute little story. I'm looking at the clock. I'm not gonna waste a whole lot of time with it. But anyway. We were in some Holiday Inn, and it's after lunch, and I'm walking in, and they got a couple of these guys from probably Western Kentucky, with their like wedding suit on, except they weigh about 230 and they probably weighed 165, and the suit, they couldn't button the button and the tie's tied to here. And they look like, they look like Wimpy. Give me a hamburger today. I'll pay you on Tuesday. And I thought it's, whatever year it was, like 2001 or 2 or whatever. So I knew any new business. So I raised my hand and they rolled their eyes, here's Manzella. And I said, it's the new millennium. Let's What about business casual? You know, everybody's got nice golf clothes. We're in the business. Throw on a nice sport coat, and you look like Ben Hogan picking up the trophy, right? That was Hogan's thing. You know, he'll comb his hair, put the sport coat on. And everybody, you could just hear the room go, yeah. Okay, let's, can I get somebody to, you know, bring it to the floor for a vote? You know, somebody did, and we were about to vote. And it was going to win like Secretariat. Who would vote against having to wear a tie to impress a bunch of guy golf pros and a couple lady golf pros? Nobody. I like clothes more than anybody. Yeah, I lose 20 more pounds, I'll dress like Elvis. But right before the vote, the guys in the green coats up the front, the PGA, elected officers in the section, they started wielding their little influence. And when it voted, 113-3, it lost.
Wow.
So you get a bunch of people in a room or a little group of people in a room, and somebody can sway the influence or whatever. If you're voting like you voted, right, and you're standing there and you're going, I think this guy is one of the best 50 teachers, click. You don't give a rat's rear end what I think. You're voting. You got to vote. But in a room of people, mob rule.
Yep. You know, as you bring up people to put on a list, and you and I have talked about him before, and everybody says in his specialty, putting, that he knows by far more than anybody on the planet, and he has never made any list, is Jeff Mangum. Now, I think that Jeff is, I would consider myself maybe a friend of his. I don't know if he would consider it that far. I would say I'm probably a friend of Jeff's, because I spent a fair amount of time with him.
I consider myself a friend of Jeff's.
Yeah, and I think his stuff.
We've
is
slept
phenomenal.
in the same room a few times. You know,
but I think in the way that Jeff has responded to the industry, I think he has done himself a disservice, and I told him that once, and I don't think he liked it, but I wasn't telling him to begrudge him or knock him down, saying, Jeff, you're so good. I think it's your presentation that is keeping you from. And he said, well, I don't care about accolades. I just want to help people do. I mean, he'll give somebody a putting lesson and say, oh, you don't know me anything, or give me $10. And that's just the person he is. But not to get off track, but I wrote him in.
It's 100%. It's 100% on track. In other words, like when I've told the story so many times, what the hell? When I was finally, the two guys in the room and the nunzio went, I think, we're going to do this. Manzella. There were people saying that the nunzio was going to have to hire a full-time attorney because the magazine was going to get sued once a week because this Brian Manzella is controversial, lie. I'm opinionated. I won't back down from my opinion. But if I was classless, I'd have been tossed off of these lists a long time ago. And I know how to act. Everybody can't be, everybody's act. Look, there's a guy in the business. I'm looking at his name right now, and I've got the top 13 up here, by the way. So he's in the top 13. That's all I'm going to give you. So when you can narrow this down. It ain't me and it ain't Jacobs. So there's only 11 other people. So he's the opposite of Jeff Mangum, right? He's the opposite of Jeff Mangum. And somebody told him, somebody with a clue, because he's got enough money to buy the right people to tell him, you know what? Too vanilla. So now he's got new social media, instructionals, and he's like trying to do me. I'm not, he's trying to come at the camera like, you think that laying the club down is a good idea? Well, I'm going to show you why it might not be a good idea for you. Like, whoa, it's new for this. I've known him for 20 years. Never seen him do that before. So you can go too far one way. Somebody thought he needed to be a little bit more aggressive. And Jeff, I'm pretty aggressive, but Jeff is further out there. And to me, and nobody's asking me, but maybe one day I'll be in position to, do a list or something. You got to get the short game people and put them in their own. I'd have a top 20 short game people.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It's really not fair to Mike Granato to not make the top 100 or the top 50 one day. He's moving up, right? I think he was 14 or 15 in Florida, and a lot of teachers in Florida. It's not fair to Mike for him being a sort of teach anything teacher, more swing than anything else, but obviously, but to get knocked off of that because a putting teacher, right? But it shouldn't have anything to do with it, whether or not you're liked or not liked or whatever. But obviously, or you're supposedly too colorful. I don't know where I came up with that one. That's a good one. Too colorful. I like that better than controversial, because I may be too colorful, but I'm not controversial. So the point is that somebody like him falls into this like last little category I got right here, which is people think, oh, it's all politics. Really, it's politics. Michael Jacobs and politics. He doesn't go to seminars to kiss babies and shake hands, which I do. He doesn't care really that much about impressing that person or that person. He'd like everybody to like something he puts out, right? He knows there are people that, they're on the other side of things from him. Number 8. Voted.
Yeah, he put his information on social media is very interesting things. He's not putting things out there just for clicks and likes. It's like, this is information if you care to follow it.
Right, and we can individually go through some of these, but since he's my best friend in the business, here you go. Michael Jacobs, number 8. Okay, so just think about this now. So, and I'm not just saying this because he's a friend of mine, and we're basically a team in a lot of ways. But I'm saying this also as a guy who's trying to be the number one guy. I got this guy, in my dang back pocket. He knows so much more about how the body and the golf swing works than whoever number 2 is. It is embarrassing for whoever number 2 is. I ain't ever going to catch him. So, I got to, if I sat down, which I haven't done yet, one of my New Year's resolutions to sit down and say, you need a plan here, bro. You got 12 more spots to go. And I'd like to make some more money while I do it. So how do I do those two things, right? And it's things like books I've never done, I want to do. So when I'm not going to ever go find a guy like Tom Myers, even though I know he's the guy, the world famous anatomist. I'm not going to dissections. Mike's been to 24. I'm not going to cut up a worm. I'm gonna throw up. When he goes to dissections, the first week I have to talk him down. He's so upset. You can just tell. Like these dead people he's holding in his hands, going, yeah, everybody thinks that shoulder goes this way and it moves this thing, but it really doesn't. It's attached to the, what I mean?
Very intricate.
You got to really know, you got to really want to know that. And having the 2 versions of our software, the club program, which just runs the club, and then the body program runs everything, club and body, that he uses, every serious student he's using, and every swing that he gets that's loaded in the gears that he didn't capture. There's no way I would have to have the software. I'd have to want to look at dead people. I have to do it a different way. I have to go, he's running up this road. I got to jump off the Long Island Expressway here at exit 30, and I got to go up the Frog's Neck Bridge, because if we're trying to get to the West Coast, I ain't catching him. He's younger than me. There's no catching him. So the people that have spent enough time with him to not think what I just said is like hyperbole, it's not, by the way. Anybody want to put him on stage with somebody else, it won't be very good for the other person. when you have figured out that he knows that much because you've gone to a seminar or something like that, when you're voting for him, you're clicking on him. When you get to the top 10, he might get a number 1 vote, number 2 vote. If you're a Jacobs 3D ambassador, there's another thing about the list. There's a certain amount of vote for your team. Why wouldn't there be? So Stack and Tilt is closely aligned with Golf Tech, very closely. Nick Clearwater's director of instruction for Golf Tech. I'm looking here, and Nick Clearwater, number 17, was number 22. He's getting a lot of Golf Tech votes. There's a lot of Golf Tech people in that 3,000 people. There's a lot of Stack and Tilters in those 3,000 people. Why wouldn't they vote for him? Not because it's nepotism. They're in that system because they think it's right.
Yeah,
right.
They believe in it.
They believe in it. So obviously they're going to vote Andy Plummer, Mike Bennett, Nick Clearwater. So if you're a Jacobs 3D ambassador, you sat in a room with the guy with Stephen Nesbitt, you can ask him any question you want. You realize how much stuff he knows, and you're going out and teaching it. You're charging $100 an hour more than you were charging 18 months ago because you're teaching so much better. He's probably getting a 1, 2, or 3 vote for you, and you get enough of those, and there he is right now. To end the thing on Michael, but he's a good one to talk about this next thing. So he was 30 on the previous list. There were 17 people who have gone to the Legends list that were ahead of him. So if he would have just held serve, 13 people, let's say I'm 13 and I was 25 to 11. Yeah, there might have been 13 or 14 people, but let's just say there were 14 people. So 13 people, 30 is 17, right? So he's 17 if everybody holds serve. And everybody's not going to hold serve, by the way, and I'll explain that in a second. Now he's just got to move up 5 places, right? At the end of the day, just like there were 11 people ahead of me, and I basically moved up 1 place. So that's something else that people have to kind of throw in their calculator. Now, here's an interesting thing right here. There's a ton of people on this list who've been on before. I'll rattle off some names for you. James Lights, who's a friend of mine, about an hour that way. I don't know if Mulligan's ever been on the list. Gary Gilchrist has been on the list before. John Sinclair has never been on the list, but there's somebody else, right? McKettrick was on the list a bunch back in the day. Mike LeBeau was on the list a bunch back in the day. They're back on the list. How the hell did that happen? Well, I'll explain it to you, folks. So you got 3,000 people voting. All right, so you're rank and file. You're not knowledgeable like Pete. You're not obsessed with all this stuff like me. You're just a good teacher, maybe a head pro someplace. You've been voting the last 10 years, 5 times, right? It's every 2 years. And you've been voting these 50 people, maybe different every time. And now you're voting your top 10. And you know who you've been voting for your top 10? Butch, 1. Ledbetter, 2. Haney, 3. Right? You've been voting the all-star team.
Yeah.
You've been voting the dream team, the troubleshooters, right? Guess what? Can't vote for any of those guys no more. So now you're the guy who's not on the cutting edge. You don't know what Jacobs 3D is. You don't know how many seminars Stan Utley's talked that in the last 3 years. A lot, okay? And he's been around forever, but but you do know I got 10 votes. Now you're voting name recognition.
Name recognition, yeah.
So James Lights, who doesn't know who James is? Who's never heard of John Sinclair? Who never heard of Mike LeBeau or Gary Gilchrist? Their name recognition is in the 80s, the 80%. So that's why. So, like somebody like Jacob saying, well, he's just moved up 5 places. Yeah, but he had to beat all of those guys too. The guys who are now getting votes because they have name recognition. So the number one thing, obviously, if you're one of the things I want to make sure we get to here is, all right, you're not on the list and you want to get on the list. I've been that guy, right? And I said I was going to start with this, but I didn't. Manzella, you're full of it because you used to criticize the list more than anybody. That's right, because I knew I was supposed to be on it. I called my shot, didn't I? So all you people out there that say, I called my shot, George Pepper, told you, right? And without a lot of help, right? David's been off the regular tour for a while. It's not like I got a current player that's playing the tour. It's not like some company, like, I don't want to mention any of the ones that have, but let's just say Callaway. I used to be a Callaway staffer, not anymore, but they were nice to me. They didn't put me on a pedestal and parade me around the world. I didn't have any help. I did this on my own, right? So you want to get on the list? Here's the number one most important thing: name recognition. How is somebody like Pete Popovich right here, this nice looking man with the slightly gray beard,
salt and pepper,
how is he going to vote a click for you, much less a top 10, if he doesn't even know who you are? And you don't have to say, well, if he's a voter, it's his job to, you should probably spend 5-10 minutes, a few days in a row, kind of looking at lists and trying to figure out, I see some omissions. I think I'm going to vote for those guys if I see them in the 163. And if I don't, like you did with Jeff Mangum, you're gonna write them in. Okay. So you have to then think about, how do I get name recognition without doing something like, ridiculous, like streaking through the middle of the PGA show, right? Well, the easiest way to do it is with a guy who plays good on TV and they mention your name a bunch.
Yep.
This is and I know they just split up, Joe Mayo and Victor Hovland. And let me tell you,
which was surprising. That was very surprising.
He cycled through a few teachers, but they had a great year. Okay, let's be honest here. This is strictly me off the top of my head. I don't like watching golf on TV. I watch all the majors. I'll watch some of the tournaments. I don't even watch the local tournament on TV because I think the coverage is awful.
Terrible.
The things that they talk about on there, if that was a podcast, it'd be the lowest ranked podcast in the history of podcasts. Okay, so that's
no argument here.
Right? No argument. Okay, so Joe Mayo's name, this is Brian Manzella, who doesn't like watching TV golf. And the most TV golf I watch is the one day every 2 weeks I'm at English Turn, because I'm mostly here in the studio teaching, and they don't even have the sound on. I heard his name 50 times this year. So that's a lot. If you're some voter, you might have not known who he was. It seems to be impossible to not know who he was. But the point is, he finished 20th or whatever. I got my list right here. Where was Joe at here?
He was 21st.
There you go. Okay. So
there's not ranked. They went from no rank to 21st.
Yeah. Well, and another guy that's been critical of the list over the years and blah, blah, blah. But hey, you get voted on, you get voted on. So student, that's the easiest way to do it. Now, is it easy to go find a player? And we can talk about tour teaching for 4 episodes. I'm going to not get sidetracked there. Okay. Second thing, you don't have a player. You're a good teacher. You think, I think I'm one of the top 100 teachers. Content that people can get to. I didn't know people were talking about the golf swing on the damn internet. I remember running into one of these forums and I was searching about the golfing machine, back in the day, golfing machine teacher, former. And I'm looking and I'm going, these people are talking about golf. Oh, let's see. Oh, how to fix your slice. I'm really good at that. Let's see. What? No. Did y'all ever consider a club face? Just asking for a friend. I got thrown off.
I'm just curious.
I got thrown off a couple forums basically for arguing something now that you would get thrown off a forum for arguing the other way. So I had a piece of that. That should be on my resume. Brian Manzella made it an industry standard to say, fix the club face first on a slicer. And it doesn't matter if I was the first one. Columbus wasn't the first guy to America, but the day goes, we like to claim things for ourselves. Okay, so I started my own damn web forum, and I took over the damn internet for a couple of years. So
yeah, that was very well known.
So every teacher pretty much who's on that top 50 list that I got on this thing and the top 100 I got on this computer, 90% of them were on the forum. They might have had a name that looked like, P Pop, and they might have been like Salt and Pepper. You didn't know who he was, right? It's a screen name. So like those guys on GolfWorks, I like having fun on GolfWorks and from time to time, and then I get frustrated. But they're all made up names. Now, who are those people? You don't know. It might be somebody you know. It might be the guy who lives next door. I have no idea. But all right. So content, right? I had an opinion on everything. I did articles that people went, well, could you do a video on it? Then I started doing videos and I started selling the videos. So you got to get content out there. Then once I got on the first list, the Nunzio found out I was good at content, and I did bunches of articles and videos for them. So then as Michael Jacobs' favorite line, this is saying a lot now. This guy's been doing this for almost 30 years. His favorite line in golf teaching was uttered to me. He wasn't there. By Rick Martino, who was formerly the director of instruction for the entire PGA of America. And I walked up to him and I went, there needs to be some kind of way, like you can have a qualifying system if you're some relatively unknown person who might be good at presenting in a national teaching summit. If you're any good, they'll ask you to speak at the section level. And this monotone, I can't do it. Michael does it better from listening to me imitate Rick. You have to start seminar. I just went and did Illinois because Jim McLean hurt his foot, and me and Jason Bale went. So there were people who probably never heard me talk. They know who I am. Now my name recognition is probably 90%. Jason Bale's name recognition of those 3,000 people is probably less than 50%. He's a very good coach with a good resume and a bunch of good players on tour, stuff like that. Well, guess what? There were 150 people in that room. They all know who Jason Bale is now. So if you don't think if they like this talk, he has potential to grab a couple, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 extra clicks because he talked at the Illinois PGA section teaching summit, then you don't know anything, right? So
he's going to grow very fast, especially if he continues. And I agree with him about how coaches are compensated. His cause, I'll call it. I think he's nailed that.
What's his take there? Maybe I didn't hear it.
When courses hire a coach, if you're going to go work at a 36-hole facility or 8, wherever you're going to work, the model, not even old, it's always been the model is, well, you're going to we're not going to pay you a salary, we'll pay you a very, very small salary, and you can eat what you hunt and what you kill.
Yeah.
And Jason was he was pushing strongly against that. He said because if the golf experience is almost the number one thing, or could be the number one thing that people are at that club for, why is the GM paid a salary? Why is the chef paid a salary? Why is the director of golf paid a salary? And then the director of instruction and the superintendent, the only one on that management team that's not is the director of instruction. And I'm surprised he didn't tell you all about it.
That part of the industry is whack.
I mean, when he came on the show, that was the focus of our discussion.
I agree with him. I don't know exactly how I would do it if you made me czar of the world, but I can tell you it wouldn't be the way it is right now. And I'm looking at my content thing, books, articles, posts, videos, right? Posts. Just go on Twitter and have a comment on everything, live lessons. Look up every chance. If you think the best thing about me, I think I know a lot about the golf swing. I don't think there's more people. If you total stuff, I'd be right up there with McLean or somebody. I've read every book, and I got access to all the stuff that he doesn't have. So the stuff that he doesn't know because he was friends with this guy or taught that guy, I know because of Steve and Mike, right? So, but live lessons are my thing. That's why I want to teach off national teaching exhibition. Because I ain't losing. Like, look, Michael Jordan in his prime might have not won the one-on-one basketball tournament. He might have not won. He wasn't going to look like a scrub.
No.
He was going to scare the hell out of whoever won on the way to that guy winning. And that's the same thing I feel like would happen with me. So every chance that I have had, whether it's, and I've said this, I think people were kidding, I gave free lessons with wiffle balls into one of those, nets that do this, a net return net, in the produce section at Kroger on Shelbyville Road in Louisville, because they asked me to do it. And I went, absolutely. So if I'm been playing drums my whole life. If you think you're good, all you want is, can I sit in here? I used to go, years after I played with bands, and every time I went to see a live band, I would ask to sit in. And I remember when I just was getting too far away from it, like I struggled to keep up, I said, I need to stop doing this. But there was a point where, it was impressive. And so, if you think you can teach, every chance you have to do something live, that's what you're going to do. Now, the next thing is, right? All right. The next reason somebody might vote for you, they got to hear of you. And the second who did he ever teach? Or, whatever. He's supposed to be so good. Why does he make such a crappy swing out of it? Right? Like, Mark Evershed, who's been a big teacher in a golfer machine guy from Canada. He goes on the internet for a while. He gets frustrated with everybody, gets away, and now he's back on. And he was asking that question, I think, yesterday or the day before. Do you think it matters that a teacher can demonstrate? Absolutely. If you think that, if I told David Toms, I remember, you're going to have to feel like you're hitting a high cut. I was trying to he was starting to kind of like round off his shoulders too much. We were in Shreveport. This is 100 years ago, at least 20. And it's been 35 years since the first time I gave him a lesson. And there was a tree at the range we were at. And he was like, you're hitting it over that tree. I said, go ahead and try to hit it over the tree. That'll work, And he couldn't get it halfway up the tree. And he went, you hit it over that tree. I hit it 15 feet over that tree. So he looked at me and says, I guess you do know something. It matters now.
Yeah,
you can say it doesn't matter, bull. It matters.
It's a lot of swag.
There's a lot of teachers on that list that never make swings in front of people. That's the reason for that. I'm not saying I swing at it like Carlos Franco with his prime, but you can look at it and goes, he probably knows. And he does what he said. He does what he teaches. That's another thing, right? So,
you know who's very good at that is Derek Dominski, Golf Better Tucson.
I know the name.
The short game, the short game stuff.
Yeah, and he hits the shots like it's nothing.
And he hits the shots. Yeah,
there you go.
It's very impressive.
Like I've always been a good bunker player. Like I remember there was a seminar in Kentucky, and Mark Steinbauer, who used to be on these lists, and he's a good guy, and he did it with a dear friend of mine. And I'm arguing, and I went, he says, yeah, let me do this, and he's hitting bunker shots. And I went, well, you got to be able to get that one closer than that. Now, come on. I'm just like kind of goading him, And he goes, well, you think you got something? I took the money clip out and flipped it. I've done that a couple of times famously at seminars. Once, that's another story for another day. So, okay, now what's another reason besides student success? They know your name. Okay, I know who Pete Popovich is. He teaches Joe Pascopoulos, has played 1-2 times on the Buy.com tour. And I like the book he wrote, Putting Like a Genius, right? Okay, so mentorship. So if what you know how to do in teaching is worth a flip, then you can duplicate it. If the idea of McDonald's was good, they could have another store and right, the rest is history. So you got a Ben Doyle. The Ben Doyle tree is impressive. Mm-hmm. You can say whatever you want about Ben or whatever. The Ben Doyle tree is impressive. I almost busted Brandel Chambly about that, but I'm not going to waste any time with Brandel Chambly today. But another day. Okay, so Pete Popovich, Oh, yeah. Joe Piscopoulos and Pete Nunez, those two guys are his proteges. They're good teachers. Dang it, click. Okay? So your mentorship, right? And then at the end of the day, I used to hate this when I was younger, but now that I got a lot of gray hair up there, history, oh, he's been doing it forever. Yeah. If you're any good, not only will they ask you to speak at the section level, but if you're any good, you'll sustain it for some length of time. So now, somebody's sitting in there voting on now that's going to get you clicks and top tens on list, Y. Brand X with the committee is different. One of the things I've said consistently, Pete, over the years about how do you get on the list? You have to get on by the preponderance of the evidence. You have to be so good that the committee goes, that's what happened with me. There was people in that room that didn't want me on that damn list. But the guys who said, no, it's time. Probably should have been 10 years ago. We put them in timeout. It's time, right? Put me in timeout. I cried when one of those lists came out because I knew I had a great year. David had a great year. I'm looking and I'm going, how can I not be on this stupid list? So it got to be, I was just getting too big. I had the bully pulpit of that forum, right? This is before social, right? And web forums were big. I was going to start roasting the list like peanuts, one name at a time. And I would have done good, dude. And I didn't care if I was ever going to get on. I was going to take everybody out with me.
You were going one way or the other.
And you know what? They went, this crazy guy, we're going to put him on, right? No, but I mean, at the end of the day, I had done enough that, the anti-summit one, that was like, oh, shoot, he's bringing scientists into the game. Okay. So that's how you get on. You have these categories, which are self-evident, and you have to have not just enough to really be better than the guy who's 100, but they don't rank the other list, right? It's just 100 people, alphabetical order, no particular, right? You don't have to just be the 99th guy. You pretty much, if you've been doing this for 10, 15 years and you haven't made a list and you think you should and you have a resume really that you should be on, you're going to have to redouble, triple your efforts and just make it where, well, shit, we got to put Pete on. He's the man, right? That's it. And they can criticize it all they want. It's how it's done, right? And it's two separate ways. And I like the ranking. I wish the other one was ranked. That would be a lot more work. But I like the ranking. I like to know. Okay, I'm moving up. I'm moving up. Because if I went the other way, I would go, what did I do the last 2 years? I didn't do, I haven't done my taxes yet this year. I kind of worry about every time, I'm going to go, if I really make more money or did I fly around the world and not make more money? But what am I doing, is my career, still, remember there was a teacher one day, are you on a certain trajectory? Yeah, it's on a certain, that guy who says, I don't understand why you did what you did, one of these things that happened. He says, your career was on this certain trajectory. Hey, buddy, if you watch this, the certain trajectory is still going this way, by the way. A friend of mine, by the way. Certain trajectory. Yeah, right here. Take some of this. But I mean, it's a true story. But the point is, if it matters to you, you have to look at I've scribbled some stuff down, of things that I need to do better in the next couple of years. It's going to take some work now. Look at these people ahead of me, right? They all have two things in common. They either world famous, taught a world famous person, or had a national TV show of some sort. And Michael, Jacobs. That's it.
And
So
most of them, and I'm not saying this in a bad, but they're younger. I
don't think that. I think that just obviously you took the people out. I don't think the younger. I don't think that has that much. It has something to do with the tour. There's no doubt about that. We can have a separate whole thing on tour instruction, which is I don't want to get started. It gives me heartburn. But I think there's some skew younger on tour. But when you vote, Butch was going to get Mark Blackburn 4,426 votes, right?
Well, I mean younger because they have.
Butch was going to get 10,000.
Yeah, they have the energy to if you both had 5 things on your list that you need to do to get to number one,
energy, yeah.
Those guys have the energy to put an extra, maybe another hour a day.
I'm Mr. Energy.
We might put it in for a week, and it's like, boy, I need to kind of sleep in the next couple of days.
But just look at this top 10. Mark Black, okay? So Mark Blackburn's teaching 2 of the best 15 players in the world, right? TPI for 99 years, third wheel on TPI. Chris Como taught Tiger Woods, right? He's got a couple players now.
Jason Day.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He taught Tiger Woods, okay? He had national TV shows. Sean Foley taught Tiger Woods. Doesn't matter what he's doing. Taught Tiger Woods, right? Cam McCormick. He taught Jordan Spieth, second most popular person in golf, right? Had a national TV show. Claude Harmon III. Give me a break. That's a pretty good name to have. James Seekman. Okay, so I really didn't see it coming, right? I love James to death. I think that says something about the short game list. I mean, James teaches full swing too, but I think, the short game has become so much more important because there are more people out there with the chip and yips now than at any time in 600 years they've been playing golf. They keep cutting those fairways around the greens like about this high, right? Martin Chuck. Okay. Well, he's an exception, but who's going to beat Martin Chuck on content? So he's coming up with these training aids or he's repurposing other people's ideas. Very good at that. He's a super likable guy and he's everywhere, right? So, I mean, you name recognition. How many people in the 3,000 never heard of Martin Chuck? 2?
Maybe.
Right?
I've known him since I was 16 and he was 19.
Michael Jacobs, talked about it already. Dana Dalkus. Well, hey, listen, if you're going to have name recognition, it helps to have a name to remember. That's a good name now. The day that his mom and dad went, Dalquist, let's see, Joe Dalquist, Pete Dalquist, Dana. Let me tell you, that got him some votes because I remembered that name from the old forum. He was on my old forum like most of these guys. It stuck in my head. Now, he's done plenty since then. His resume speaks for itself. Stan Utley. Short game is big. Dave Phillips. TPI is like the second or third or fourth biggest hammer to have in your hand in the world. He got 7,000 people that are TPI certified. The little Italian boy from Chalmette, Manzella, Andy Plummer. Like we said, you got Stack and Tilt Network. He's going to get first and second place votes. You got the Golf Tech Network. I mean, come on. And he's a great teacher with a great resume. Boyd Summerhays. Everybody in the family can play, right? I mean, right?
Well, yeah, and he's got Tony. Tony's his horse.
Absolutely. David Orr, there's that short game thing again, see? More of a putting guy than a pitching guy, but, right? And a regular teacher, but more known for Nick Clearwater, biggest company in the whole wide world that gives golf instruction. George Ganges, ubiquitous, but interestingly, 11 to 18. So you got to look at, it's when you have a quick rise out of nowhere, then it's easy to have a little bit quicker, fall. And he's sort of reinventing himself, a lot more juniors and stuff like that now. Scott Hamilton's given 5 billion lessons on tour. I think most people vote and know that. Everybody knows James Lights and Joe Mayo, Bill Harmon. He's a Harmon, and he's Mike Bennett, C. Andy Plummer, Andrew Rice. content. Ping saved a couple careers. I'm not saying saved his career, but the Ping thing, they decided to go all in. Like we're gonna go all in on this teaching and stuff. These other companies are scared of it. They're not interested in it. It hadn't hurt Ping sales. These other companies, ought to look at that and go, hey, we can have a little team of.
Those guys at Penn, I've had 3 of them. I've had Marty on, at Eric Hendrickson and Paul Wood. And we talked about an engineering company and the creative side of it. They actually schedule creative meetings. And I think those guys are doing, it's like they're trend setting again.
Again, original 100%, but all these other companies have the ability to do this. And I know they think, the marketing departments think, remember now, this is a family-owned business, Ping. They can do whatever they want. These people that are on the stock exchanges, they get a little worried, like, oh yeah, we're gonna get these teachers involved and we're gonna screw everything up.
Titleist has done it a little bit with TPI and who they brought in.
Yeah, but not that many people have gotten like they put up on a pedestal, and make a headliner out of them. Like I'm not saying Blackburn wasn't a headliner before they gave him the chance to. I'm just saying I can't. If you put a gun to my head and said, "Come with the 4th person," I don't know who that is. Bernie Najar. Okay, everybody knows who Bernie is, who's anybody in the business. Now, that might only be 70% of the voting, but of those 65% that know who Bernie is, he probably got a bunch of top 10s with these other guys not being able to be voted for top 10s. Cheryl Anderson had a great couple years, good teacher, good. The fact that she put it in a tournament and made the cut in the ladies open. Everybody goes, see, that back to the Mark Evershed thing. So as you go down the list, the people who think the lists are, you don't, Sean Webb, 34, my buddy. What the hell? AMG everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not Jamie Mulligan, who runs the Teaching Summit, the biggest non-national teaching summit. He's the grand poobah of the section teaching summit in Southern California. I got to talk, so you look, there's not anybody that you go, man, this don't make any sense. It all makes sense. So the people who are saying, the lists are full of it, they need to watch this podcast twice.
It is somebody who wasn't afraid to speak their mind. And I think that as you told that story earlier about the ideas that come about as things evolve, the golf game and coaching and everything else, and the vote to where it was going to be, hey, let's have business casual with a sport coat instead of the tie and everything else, and that small group nixed it. And I have said many times that one of the best things about golf is its history and its connection to tradition, but also the thing that holds golf back is its history and its connection to tradition. So I think you, as someone who voiced their opinion in an industry that tended not to want to do that, wanted to be more stoic and things like that. So
by the way, I want to go on record as saying this. The people that talk about people with opinions, they shouldn't have opinions. They're slicing everybody up behind closed doors like it's going out of style. Not saying all, but so many of them. It's like politically correct, perfectly determines what you say and what you don't say. Yeah, you could be on one end of it and just whatever comes out of your coconut, like Jeff Mangum. You could be somebody who everybody thinks. There's a couple people that everybody think that are on this list that everybody think like are holier than thou, and they are the biggest crybabies behind closed doors. You wouldn't believe them if I told you. And then I think, to me, I'm somewhere in the middle because I can't spit everything that's in my head out. I get arrested. So there's a balance there. And the industry is changing when it comes to that because it has to. The internet, you got people who didn't make the list this time, who were big deals on the internet, and you're going to wind up with a situation like Genkish. You're going to have a guy who was caddying and then 10 years later is on the cover of a magazine because Golf Digest thought it was a good idea to put him on the cover. the point of the matter is that you can't avoid the vastness of the internet and all of this, the way it used to be stuff.
No, the world has changed. There's no doubt about it. Completely with the YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and everything. Your ability to self-promote. You don't need to go through traditional channels or those green coats as you referred to them earlier.
You don't get asked to talk. Like, famously, I've never spoken 19 countries, been the headliner in a bunch of them, never spoken at a PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit National. Now, that, obviously, if you think about it for a second, that doesn't even make any sense. There's committees. They get in a room. All you need one guy to go, right? So, and you don't want to argue with that guy. So it shouldn't be that way. But if I have a problem with it, and believe me, I'll kiss the stage the day I finally talk about those things. You can start your own damn thing. The open forum was my idea. What a dummy, right? I gave it to those guys right away. I wanted to attend it. There'll be 600 people in the room here in 3 weeks. You can have your own seminar. Ain't nobody taking that mic from Michelides. Nobody's taking that mic from that son of a gun, right? Who's going to ask him to talk at a national summit? He's got the mic in his damn hand. He can talk as long as he wants to. He's part owner of the damn thing. So the opportunity, if you don't like the opportunities that are out there, you can create your own damn opportunity like I did with my web forum.
Would you consider yourself within the coaching or the golf industry a disruptor?
I tried like hell. I think it stunk. My best friends in the business, let's say the 8 or 9 males, and I'm about to give a lesson here in 7 minutes to a female who should be on the top 100, and probably will get on it eventually. I don't want to throw the names off, but she's got a lesson in 6.5 minutes with me. So tell me what we were just talking about. I'm sorry.
I asked if you're a disruptor.
Yeah. So the point of the matter is that if you don't like the way things are, well, what are you going to do? It's the industry is, but friends. So if you took my top 10 friends in the business, they all think this is the stupidest business in the world. These are successful people now. None of those 10 people are not successful, and they all think it's total garbage. And I'm going to tell you the number one reason it's total garbage. Who's covering it? There's no coverage of it. You got a guy, it's news, the whole, Joe and Victor Hovland thing. It's news. I knew about it 10 days ago. A regular reporter, famous, he broke the story. Shouldn't there be somebody covering golf instruction?
Yeah, I think Luke Kierdenin is doing a decent job of. He's just not. I think he could be the one to champion that cause.
He obviously could do it. He's not covering golf instruction. He's talking a lot about the golf swing. Mm-hmm. Almost looks to me like he thinks maybe, next career might be teaching. Maybe he'd be good at it. Who knows? But the point is, the number one thing would be cover it like every other cover it like they cover college golf football coaching. Cover the damn thing first. And the second thing is there needs to be more emphasis on showing live lessons to the massive audience that is the 50 million people who play golf. If every one of those people on the top 50 list had to post up a lesson from last year or the next year, you have a whole year. You teach it every day. I'm starting in 4 minutes. If that lesson's good, I can put that one up. I don't have to pick one that's a dud.
I think of all the things that I think of all the things Gankis did. Putting his live lessons on YouTube was a very, very
yes. I think if those two things, if somebody covered it, and everybody says, nobody's interested. Yeah. Ask that guy Ryan French about things that people are interested in, right? Monday Q. Nobody was covering that either, but it turns out a lot of people were interested. So the industry really doesn't know. Like Michael Jacobs said, greatest line ever. The powers that be are trying to save their job this month. They're not trying to save golf. Somebody could do a lot for the teaching industry to do those two things. Make it a point, like it should be like a requirement of a PGA member, post up a lesson every year. That would change the world. But who's this guy? Oh, Pete Popovich, where's he at? Carolinas. Okay, I'll watch this podcast. I'm gonna watch this lesson. Now, it's a handpicked lesson, but so what? You go, I kind of like, you know what? I think I might take a lesson from him. Or they watch your lesson and they go, man, this guy that I'm working with, he doesn't have the bedside manner this Popovich guy has. I got to find me a teacher. You see what I'm saying? So those two things,
it'll help.
Those two things would do a lot for the industry that I love and can't wait to be in the mix here in a couple of weeks at the PGA show. But the main thing that I want to leave everybody with on this one is somebody had to do this. Somebody with knowledge. I don't think very many people who are not like directly connected to these lists know as much as I do or care to know. And I just think that if I helped anybody at least understand it or help them figure out what they need to do if they think they deserve to be on it or want to be on it one day, then, it was, but I'd talk to you anytime, buddy, just for the hell of it.
Hey, I know I don't want you to be late for your lesson, even though you're going to be. It's always a pleasure to have you on. You always bring great info and you're very informative and help people the way you do when you're coaching and teaching.
62 years old. I got energy, baby. Great talking, buddy.
Brian. I'll see you in a couple weeks at the PGA show.
Absolutely.
All right. If you got to run.